Hey everyone, today Eric and I wanted to show you how to build a circular herringbone table. We found scrap pieces of 2x4 pine wood around where we live and thought it would be perfect for making a dining room table since we were in need of one. The first step is to determine what length you want your herringbone design to be. You will need all the pieces of wood to be the same length to help make the design look cohesive and the pattern flow correctly. Since we were using scrap wood, we measured all the pieces that we had collected to come up with the best possible length to optimize all the wood. In our case, it was 12-inch long pieces. Therefore, I built a stop with 2 patio pavers. That way I could make all the cuts on the miter saw without measuring 12 inches on every single piece of wood. Erica wanted a 48-inch round table. Therefore, we estimated that we were going to need 50 to 60 12-inch 2x4 pieces. While I was cutting the 12-inch pieces that you see stacked up behind Erica, she took a scrap piece of cardboard that we had laying around and built a 48-inch round circle guide for us to use later. For the base of the table, we were using 1/2-inch plywood that you can purchase at your local big box store. Since plywood comes in sheets of 48 inches by 96 inches, we just had them cut one sheet of plywood in half. Like I mentioned before, Erica wanted a 48-inch round table. Therefore, we needed to find the middle point. To find the middle point, you measure halfway on all 4 sides of the plywood. In our case, since the sides are 48 inches, I was making a point at 24 inches. If you decide to do a rectangle that is 48 inches by 60 inches, you will make a line at 24 and 30 respectively. Once you have marked your middle point on all 4 sides, you will want to take a straight edge and run it from one point to the next. That way you can draw a straight line. Where those 2 lines meet is going to be your middle point for your round table. Double check your center point by measuring where the 2 lines meet from each side. In our case, it was 24 inches, and that is what is showing on the tape measure. Before gluing and nailing down the 2x4s, Erica wanted to lay out the herringbone pattern to make sure it was laid out exactly the way she wanted it. We are using a mix of Titebond 3 wood glue along with 1.5" 18-gauge brad nails to adhere the 2x4s to the 1/2-inch plywood base. Erica found some Loctite Express wood glue laying around the shop and thought it would be a good way to get rid of it since we were also using brad nails to adhere the 2x4s. To start the herringbone pattern, we are laying our first 2 pieces at a right angle at the center point. We found this to be the most logical and easiest starting place for us, and we like the pattern this way. laying majority of the 2x4s, we started to measure to make sure that we were using as much wood as possible. One thing we realized when putting this video together is that we were walking on our future dining room table. Nasty. We will try and not make that mistake again in the future. Luckily, everything will be sanded down, stained, and sealed before use. After completing our pattern, we left the table sit to dry for 24 hours. Mentioned before, this is where we were going to use Erica's cardboard cutout circle template. One thing we learned, however, is that when cutting the cardboard with scissors, it doesn't leave a clean enough edge for us to trace a circle with. Therefore, we went to plan B. We took a scrap piece of 1x4 and put a general nail in it. We then measured out 24 inches, where we drilled a hole large enough to fit a Sharpie in it. We then hammered the general nail into the center point of the table, where I could hold the nail while Erica went around to make the circle shape for us to cut. Once we had the circle outlined, I took my reciprocating saw to cut out the circle. You can also use other tools like a jigsaw, however, I did not have one of those at the time of cutting the circle. Since we were using scrap 2x4 dimensional lumber, it doesn't have perfect squared edges. We do not own a table saw nor a joiner to make perfect square edges, so we decided to fill in the gaps with wood filler. Next time we make a herringbone table or where wood joints come together, I will make sure to have perfect square edges so that the wood fits tighter. After letting the wood filler dry for 24 hours, I came back with 60 grit sandpaper to knock down all the excess wood filler. A suggestion is to do this outside or in a well-ventilated area. The wood filler of this amount causes a lot of dust and will get everywhere. Take it from me and my experience. Rounded the edges of the table with the same 60 grit sandpaper. I sanded the table from 60 grit to 80 to 120 and then finally 220 until the wood was as smooth as I wanted it to be. Once sanding is complete, we moved on to staining the table. We are using Varathane Golden Pecan that you can pick up at your local Home Depot. We decided to only do one coat of stain because we like lighter woods and didn't want it to turn too red. After letting the stain dry for another 24 hours, we came back with polyurethane top coat. We are using Varathane polyurethane that has a satin finish. Eric and I do not like shiny finishes, therefore we find that satin finish to be the best for us and our taste. We recommend at least 3 coats of polyurethane finish, especially on a table that will be used every day. Between each coat, I went over the table with 240 grit sandpaper to knock down any bubbles or high spots left by the drying polyurethane. For the legs of the table, we had some leftover 4x4s from a different project. We thought this would be a nice contrast to the round table top. We sanded, stained, and applied 3 coats of polyurethane finish to the legs just like we did for the top of the table. Next, it was time to measure where we would attach the legs to the tabletop. Erica wanted them to be closer to the center of the table. Therefore, I measured in on the cross lines that we made before 16 inches. You cannot see it here in the video, however, I'm using a 1/16 bit to drill a pilot hole. Once again, you cannot see it here in the video, however I'm using a 5/16 bit to drill larger holes where we already have our pilot holes. I placed a piece of painter's tape on the drill bit as a flag to make sure I did not go too deep into the tabletop. To attach the legs, we will be using insert nuts that go into the back of the table and hanger bolts that go into the legs. To insert the insert nuts into the back of the table, use a hexagon bit attached to your impact driver. Do not make the mistake that I made by using too small of a hexagon bit. You want to make sure the insert nut is flush with the back of the tabletop. To attach the hanger bolts to the legs, we first needed to find the middle point. Here I'm drilling a 3/16 inch pilot hole at the middle point before attaching our 1/4 inch hanger bolts. A trick to attach hanger bolts is to use a nut on the threaded side to help you get the self-tapping screw part into the wood you are placing them into. Once all the hanger bolts are attached to the legs, it is time to attach the legs to the tabletop. You simply line up the hanger bolts that is attached to the legs with the insert nut on the bottom of the table and tighten until snug. Erica decided to add felt furniture pads on the bottom of the metal feet to keep the table from scratching our floors. This is recommended especially if you're going to place your table on a wood or tile floor. Erica and I learned a ton from this build, but love how this herringbone table turned out. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next home project.